I was standing in my kitchen when I found it, tucked between expired coupons and takeout menus in the junk drawer I hadn't opened in months. A crumpled grocery voucher. $9. The edges were torn. The barcode faded like it had been sitting in someone's wallet for years before they decided it wasn't worth keeping. My hands started shaking as I turned it over and saw the handwriting on the back. Michael's handwriting. Just 2 words. For Mom. $9. That's what 32 years of motherhood was worth to my son. I collapsed against the counter, the voucher slipping from my fingers and floating to the floor like a feather from a dead bird. My vision blurred, not from tears. I was too shocked for tears yet, but from the sudden, violent realization that the silence I'd been living in for the past 8 months wasn't temporary. It wasn't a phase. It was a decision. A calculated, deliberate choice my children had made about my value in their lives. The kitchen felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in. I could smell the lemon cleaner I'd used that morning, trying to keep the house perfect like I always had, even though no one came to see it anymore. The refrigerator hummed its lonely song. On the counter sat a birthday cake I'd baked 3 days ago for my granddaughter Emma's 7th birthday, a party I wasn't invited to. I'd found out about it from a neighbor who saw the bounce house being delivered to Michael's house across town. I bent down and picked up the voucher with trembling fingers, studying it like it was evidence in a crime scene. Because that's what this felt like, a crime. The date stamp showed it was from 2 years ago. 2 years. He'd been carrying this around, or it had been sitting in some drawer of his, and when he finally decided to acknowledge my existence, this is what he chose. Not a call. Not a visit. Not even a text message. A 2-year-old coupon that wouldn't even buy a gallon of milk. But here's what really destroyed me. This wasn't the first sign. This was just the moment I could no longer pretend I didn't see the pattern. My name is Margaret Eleanor Foster, and for 32 years, being a mother was the only identity that mattered to me. I had 3 children, Michael, Sarah, and David, and I built my entire existence around making sure they had everything I never did growing up. I was raised in poverty, the kind that leaves permanent marks on your soul. We ate mayonnaise sandwiches for dinner and wore shoes with cardboard stuffed in the holes. My mother worked 3 jobs and still couldn't keep the lights on half the time. When I got pregnant with Michael at 23, I made a promise to myself that my children would never know that kind of desperation. And I kept that promise. I worked as a nurse for 40 years, pulling double shifts and overnight rotations so I could afford the good school district, the piano lessons, the college funds. My husband Robert died when the kids were young. Michael was 12, Sarah was 9, David was only 6. A heart attack took him on a Tuesday morning while he was mowing the lawn. I found him face down in the grass, and in that moment, my life split into a before and after that would define everything. I never remarried, never even dated. Every ounce of energy, every dollar, every dream I had went into those 3 children. Michael wanted to be a doctor, so I worked extra shifts to pay for his pre-med courses. Sarah wanted to study in Paris for a semester, so I took out a second mortgage. David struggled with dyslexia, so I paid for private tutors 3 times a week for 6 years. They all succeeded. God, they succeeded brilliantly. Michael became a cardiologist, married a lawyer named Christine, had 2 beautiful children. Sarah became a marketing executive in Chicago, living in a penthouse overlooking the lake. David started his own tech company and sold it for $8 million before he turned 35. I was so proud. So achingly, desperately proud. I retired at 63, my body finally giving out after 4 decades of hospital floors and 12-hour shifts. My knees were shot, my back was a roadmap of chronic pain, and I developed arthritis in my hands that made it hard to button my own shirt some mornings. But I was content because I'd done it. I'd given my children the foundation to build magnificent lives. The first year of retirement was beautiful. The kids called regularly. They visited on holidays. I hosted Thanksgiving and Christmas, cooking for days to make sure everything was perfect. Michael's kids, Emma and Joshua, would run through my house, and their laughter filled all the empty spaces Robert had left behind. But then something shifted. It started small. Michael canceled Sunday dinner because of a work conference. Then Sarah stopped returning my calls as quickly, taking days instead of hours. David moved to Austin for business and promised to visit often but never did. I told myself it was natural. They were busy, successful, building their own families and careers. I should be happy they needed me less. Isn't that what you want as a parent? For your children to be independent? But independence slowly turned into absence. The Sunday dinners stopped entirely. Phone calls became texts, then texts became sporadic. Then they became nothing at all. Birthdays passed without acknowledgement. I'd send gifts to my grandchildren and never know if they arrived because no one would respond. I started showing up unannounced at Michael's house because it was the only way I could see Emma and Joshua, and I watched Christine's face tighten with annoyance each time she opened the door to find me standing there with homemade cookies. The last time I went, she didn't even invite me inside. She took the cookies through a crack in the door and said, "Margaret, you really need to call first. We have schedules." Then she closed the door in my face, while I could hear my grandchildren laughing somewhere inside the house. I stood on that porch for 5 minutes, unable to move, trying to understand what I'd done wrong. That was 8 months ago. Since then, nothing. Complete silence. I'd call, and the phones would go to voicemail. I'd text and see the read receipts but receive no response. I sent letters that were never acknowledged. I even tried emailing, thinking maybe I was using the wrong technology, but those vanished into the void too. I stopped sleeping well. I'd lie awake replaying every interaction, every conversation, searching for the moment I'd failed them. Had I been too clingy? Too demanding? Was I supposed to just disappear because they'd grown up? My friends noticed. Carol from my book club kept asking why the kids never visited anymore, and I'd make up elaborate lies about their busy schedules. My neighbor Ted asked about my grandchildren, and I'd smile and pretend everything was fine while dying inside. The loneliness was a living thing, growing inside me like a tumor. And then I found that voucher. But that $9 insult was just the key that unlocked a door I'd been too afraid to open. Because when I finally started digging into why my children had abandoned me, what I found was so much worse than silence. The voucher sat on my kitchen table for 3 days. I'd walk past it, try to ignore it, but it pulled at me like a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. On the 4th day, I picked up my phone and called Michael's office. His secretary, a woman I'd met twice at holiday parties, answered with professional cheerfulness. "Dr. Foster's office, how may I help you?" "Hi, Jennifer. This is Margaret Foster, Michael's mother. I need to speak with him. It's important." There was a pause. A long, uncomfortable pause. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Foster, but Dr. Foster is with patients all afternoon. Can I take a message?" "No, I need to speak with him directly. Tell him his mother is on the line." Another pause, then a sigh so quiet I almost missed it. "Mrs. Foster, Dr. Foster has. He's left instructions that all calls from family should be directed to voicemail. I can transfer you if you'd like." The floor dropped out from under me. "He what?" "I'm sorry. Those are his instructions. Would you like me to?" I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly, I dropped the phone. It clattered against the table, and I stared at it like it had betrayed me. Instructions. He'd left instructions to avoid my calls. That's when the crying finally came, huge, gasping sobs that bent me double over the kitchen table. How does it come to this? How does a mother who gave everything end up being screened by her son's secretary? When I could breathe again, I tried Sarah. Straight to voicemail. I tried David. Same thing. I sent a group text to all 3 of them. I found Michael's voucher. "I need to know what I did wrong. Please just talk to me." The messages showed as delivered. Then read. Then nothing. That's when I decided to do something I'd never done before. I looked at their social media accounts. I wasn't really active on Facebook or Instagram, but I had accounts. I'd friend requested them years ago, but they'd never accepted. So I did something that made me feel pathetic and desperate. I created a fake profile. A generic name, a stock photo of a middle-aged woman, a few generic posts to make it look real. Then I searched for my children. Michael's Facebook was semi-public. The first thing I saw was a photo from Emma's birthday party, the one I hadn't been invited to. The the bounce house, the decorations. At least 30 people gathered in his backyard, all smiling. The caption read, "So grateful for family and friends who make every moment special." I scrolled further. Photos of vacations I didn't know they'd taken. Sarah visiting from Chicago and staying at Michael's house. They'd spent a whole weekend together. David flying in from Austin for Michael's anniversary party. All three of my children, together, celebrating without me. Then I found it. A post from 6 months ago, shared in a private group that someone had accidentally left public. The group was called Adult Children of Difficult Parents Support Group. And Michael had posted in it, "Need advice. My mother is becoming increasingly demanding and won't respect boundaries. She shows up unannounced, constantly calls, and makes us feel guilty when we can't drop everything for her. My siblings and I are considering going low contact. Has anyone successfully set boundaries with an aging parent who won't take no for an answer?" The responses were sympathetic, supportive. Everyone agreed he had the right to protect his family from toxic behavior. Toxic. My son called me toxic. I read it 17 times, each time hoping the words would somehow rearrange themselves into a different meaning. But they didn't. He'd painted me as a villain, and dozens of strangers had validated his decision to cut me out. But then I saw Sarah's comment underneath. "Just remember what she did to Dad. We don't owe her anything after that." My blood went ice cold. What I did to Dad. Robert died of a heart attack. A sudden, tragic medical event. What could she possibly mean? I clicked on Sarah's profile, also semi-public, and began scrolling through years of posts. Nothing jumped out until I found a conversation from a year ago between Sarah and someone named Jennifer. Sarah had written, "Mom's acting confused again about why we're distant." It's almost impressive how she's rewritten history in her head. Like she genuinely doesn't remember what she did. Jennifer replied, "Denial is powerful. My mother's the same way. They construct these narratives where they're the victim." Sarah responded, "Exactly. She actually believes she was some kind of saint. Meanwhile, she killed my father with her selfishness and has been guilt-tripping us ever since." Killed my father. I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning. What were they talking about? Robert died of a heart attack while mowing the lawn. I found him. I performed CPR until the paramedics arrived. I held his hand while they pronounced him dead in the hospital. I buried him. I mourned him for years. How did that become me killing him? That's when I realized, somewhere along the way, my children had created an alternate history of our lives, and I wasn't there to defend myself when they wrote it. I called Michael's house from my landline, hoping Christine wouldn't recognize the number. She answered on the third ring. "Hello. Christine, it's Margaret. Please don't hang up. I need to understand what's happening. Michael posted online that I'm toxic, and Sarah said I killed Robert. I don't understand what I did." Silence. Then a long exhale. "Margaret, Michael doesn't want me talking to you. Please. I'm begging you. Just tell me what I did wrong." Another pause. "You really don't know, do you?" Her voice was softer now, almost pitying. "Margaret, Robert's heart attack wasn't random. He'd been having chest pains for weeks before he died. He told you about them. Multiple times. But you were always too busy with work, too focused on making money, and you told him it was probably just stress. You dismissed him, and when he finally collapsed, it was too late." The words hit me like bullets. That's not. I don't remember that. Of course you don't. Because you've spent 20 years rewriting what happened to make yourself the hero. But Michael remembers. He heard his father begging you to take him to the doctor, and he watched you brush him off because you couldn't miss a shift. Sarah remembers finding his journal after he died, where he wrote about feeling neglected and scared. David might have been young, but even he remembers the fights about you never being home. I was working to provide for them. You were working to avoid dealing with your marriage. Robert told Michael that he felt like he didn't even have a wife anymore, that you cared more about playing martyr and being the perfect mother than about actually being present for any of them. Each word was a knife. After he died, you made everything about you, about your sacrifice, about how hard it was being a single mother. But you made yourself single, Margaret. And then you spent the next 20 years using his death to guilt your children into owing you something. That's not true. Michael's in therapy because of the guilt you buried him in. Sarah had panic attacks in college because she felt responsible for your happiness. David moved across the country to escape the emotional manipulation. You made them successful. Yes, but you also made them feel like they could never be enough to repay the debt you constantly reminded them they owed. I never. The voucher? That was Michael's way of finally giving you exactly what he thinks you gave his father. A token gesture that says, I'm fulfilling an obligation, but nothing more. He's done, Margaret. They're all done. She hung up. I sat in the silence of my kitchen, Christine's words echoing in my skull. Was she right? Had I really dismissed Robert's chest pains? The memories were fuzzy, buried under 20 years of grief and revision. I remembered him being tired. I remembered him saying his chest felt tight once or twice. But I didn't remember him begging for help. I didn't remember ignoring him. Did I? But the worst twist was still coming. Because when I finally found Robert's journal, hidden in a box in my attic that I'd never opened after he died, I discovered the truth wasn't what Christine said. It was so much worse. The journal was in a cardboard box labeled Robert's Things, in my handwriting from 20 years ago. I'd put it in the attic after he died, because looking at his belongings was too painful. I'd never opened it. Not once. My hands shook as I broke the tape seal and lifted the flap. Inside were his watches, some old photographs, his wedding ring, and a leather-bound journal I didn't even know he'd kept. I brought it downstairs to the kitchen, made tea I wouldn't drink, and opened to the first page. The entries started 3 years before he died. Mundane observations about work, the kids' milestones, weekend plans. But then, about 8 months before his death, the tone shifted. Margaret worked another double today. 16 hours. She came home and fell asleep on the couch without saying hello to the kids. I know she's tired. I know she's doing this for us. But sometimes I wonder if she's running toward providing for us or running away from being with us. My throat tightened. My chest felt strange today during work, like pressure. I mentioned it to Margaret, but she said I probably just strained something lifting boxes. She's probably right. I'm only 42, too young for heart problems. Oh God. The chest pressure happened again. More intense this time. I told Margaret I think I should see a doctor. She got defensive, said we couldn't afford the copay right now with Sarah's trip coming up, and I was probably fine. I don't want to push it. She's under so much stress. Tears blurred the words. I love my wife, but I don't think she actually sees me anymore. I'm just a piece of the machine that keeps the family running. Sometimes I think about what would happen if I died. Would she grieve me, or would she just work harder to compensate for my absence? I couldn't read anymore. I closed the journal and pressed my palms against my eyes, trying to hold myself together. But then I saw a loose page tucked in the back, a letter he'd written but never sent. It was addressed to the kids. Michael, Sarah, David. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I need you to know something important. Your mother loves you more than anything in this world. More than she loves herself. More than she loves me. I know things have been hard. I know you see her working all the time and wonder why she can't just be home more. But you need to understand, she grew up with nothing. Real, desperate poverty. And she's terrified of you experiencing that. It haunts her in ways she can't articulate. I've tried to get her to slow down, to trust that we'll be okay even if she works less, but she can't. The fear is too deep. And honestly, I've let her carry this burden alone because it's easier than fighting about it. My health hasn't been great lately. I'm scared, but I haven't pushed the issue because I don't want to add to her stress. That's my failing, not hers. If something happens to me, please don't blame your mother. She's doing the best she can with demons you can't see. Take care of her. She'll need you more than she'll admit. I love you all. Dad. I sobbed so hard I thought my ribs would crack. Robert hadn't blamed me. He'd understood me in ways I'd never understood myself. And he tried to protect me even in death. But the kids never saw this letter. They'd found his journal, read his fears and frustrations, and constructed a narrative where I was the villain. They needed someone to blame for losing their father, and I was the easy target. And maybe I deserved some of that blame. I did dismiss his chest pains. I was so consumed with fear of financial insecurity that I ignored the warning signs. I did choose work over presence. I told myself it was love, but maybe it was cowardice. Maybe it was easier to hide in the hospital than face the messy reality of marriage and fatherhood and intimacy. But I didn't kill him out of malice or selfishness. I killed him out of fear and ignorance and a desperate need to prove I was enough. And my children never gave me the chance to explain. I called Michael one more time. This time he answered. Mom. His voice was flat. Asked you to stop contacting us. I found your father's journal. And his letter. Silence. Michael, he didn't blame me. He understood why I worked so hard. And he was taking responsibility for not pushing harder about his health. You never saw the full picture. That doesn't change anything. How can you say that? You spent 20 years hating me for something that wasn't entirely my fault.
No, Mom.
We spent 20 years carrying the weight of your guilt. Every birthday, every holiday, every accomplishment, you made it about your sacrifice. You made us feel like we owed you our entire lives as payment for Dad's death. That's what we can't forgive. Not that he died, but that you used his death to control us. The words landed like stones. I never meant to. It doesn't matter what you meant. It's what you did, and we're done paying for it. We've all been in therapy trying to untangle the damage. The voucher wasn't cruelty, Mom. It was a statement. You gave us everything material and nothing emotional. So we're giving you the same in return. Michael, please. Goodbye, Mom. The line went dead. I'm 73 years old now. 10 years have passed since I found that voucher. I still live in the same house, though it's too big for me, and the stairs are getting harder to manage. I never heard from my children again. Not for holidays. Not for birthdays. Not even when I had a minor stroke 2 years ago and spent a week in the hospital. A social worker had to call them as my emergency contacts, and they declined to visit. I did receive a lawyer's letter once. They wanted to make sure I wouldn't contest their decision to refuse inheritance rights. They didn't want my estate when I died. Even in death, they wanted no connection to me. Sometimes I see photos of my grandchildren online. Emma just started high school. Joshua is playing varsity soccer. I'm a stranger to them. They probably don't even remember I exist. I've had a lot of time to think about where I went wrong. The truth is complicated. I was both a victim of my own trauma and an architect of my children's pain. I worked myself to death trying to give them security, but I never learned how to give them myself. And after Robert died, I turned my grief into a weapon I didn't even realize I was wielding. They were right about some things. I did make my sacrifice into their burden. I did center my pain in their lives. But they were also wrong about others. I loved them desperately. I just loved them in the only language I knew, provision and protection, when what they needed was presence. The voucher is still in my junk drawer. I never used it. It expired years ago, but I can't bring myself to throw it away. It's the last thing my son gave me, even if it was meant as an insult. Some nights I wonder what would have happened if I'd found Robert's letter 20 years ago. If I'd shown it to the kids. If I'd explained my own childhood trauma and helped them understand why I became who I was. Maybe things would be different. Maybe they'd still be in my life. But probably not. Because the truth is, by the time Robert died, I'd already created a pattern. I'd already taught them that love meant sacrifice and debt. And patterns that deep don't break just because you suddenly understand them. I gave them everything. And they were right to leave me with $9. Because in the end, I never gave them the only thing that actually mattered, the simple, uncomplicated experience of being loved without owing something in return. That's the part one can't forgive myself for. Not Robert's death. Not the years of overwork. But the fact that my children grew up believing my love came with a price tag. And I spent so long making sure they'd never know hunger that I never noticed they were starving for something I didn't know how to feed them. So here I am. Alone in a too-big house, surrounded by photographs of people who don't want me in their lives, holding a $9 voucher that expired before I ever had the chance to redeem it. Just like I expired in their lives before they ever had the chance to know who I really was. That's what I can't stop thinking about. Not that they left me, but that they never really knew me at all. And whose fault is that?
Mine.
It's all mine. Some voices stay silent for years. But here, every story finds its sound. Like, subscribe, and stay with the silent parents.